CNN Harvard Business Review. We are grateful that she is here today. And so without further ado, I would like to present Dr. Christy Glass.
Thank you so much, Joy, and thank you to Women in Safety for inviting me back. I see several friendly faces in the audience, faces that I've seen before, and I'm really honored that I can be a part of your group even as an outsider. So thanks for having me. Thanks for what you do. And thanks to all of you who work to make events like this possible. I think just in briefly talking to Joy about your group, I'm really inspired by this. We need each other, and we need groups like this to have so that we can practice having each other's back. So thanks for having me. So today I want to talk to you about how we can build visibility for ourselves and for each other. The reality is we need you. We need you in leadership. We need you leading. We need you mentoring. We need you sponsoring each other. We need you making connections with each other so that we can make your profession stronger. What I want to do today is really kind of big picture stuff, but then I want to get really specific and give you some really specific strategies and have you kind of work through some things about, that reflect your career and your aspirations and the work, make visible some of the work you're already doing in terms of networking and mentoring and promoting yourself and each other. So let me start with the why. Not too much. Let's see. It's certainly user error.
I'm not allowed to press buttons in my household.
So maybe this just doesn't recognize.
Go ahead and try new.
Oh, there we go. This is what I want to accomplish today. I want to give you kind of a big picture of why promoting talent matters, why representation in leadership roles matters. My work speaks directly to this, and I just want to share kind of a snapshot of what we know about what happens to organizations, professions, and jobs when there is kind of a strong and diverse representation among our leadership. And then I want to teach you about this concept of the visibility paradox, which is a challenge a lot of us face, particularly in jobs or sectors or fields where we're the numerical minority. So for example, if you work in a job or a field or a sector, I suspect many of you do, where women are in the numerical minority, where women are underrepresented relative to men, there's some really predictable challenges in those contexts in getting your skill and your talent seen in the way it needs to be seen to experience promotions and advancement. I want to talk to you about that. And then I want to talk to you about ways research has shown us to overcome that visibility paradox. And that's when we'll have some fun, and we'll get you'll have some exercises to do alone and with each other to start thinking really practically about how to use research to inform your next steps for your career. Let me just start with something that I think we all know and appreciate, but I just want to say it out loud, the why, right? Why is it important that we advance in our careers? Why is it important that we support each other's advancement? Why is it important that we overcome the challenges of visibility in male-dominated jobs to get seen, to get promoted? The reality is that inclusion transforms our organizations. From everyday ways in which we do business to the big things about how our organizations are reflected in our communities, it all matters when it comes to making sure women and people of color and LGBTQ+ folks are represented in positions of leadership. In the words of former PepsiCo CEO Indra Nooyi, recruiting, hiring, retaining, and advancing women and people of color is a business imperative. We're not just doing this because it's the right thing to do. We're doing this because it matters for our organization's health and growth. My own research with Allison Cook shows that having inclusive leadership structures in organizations makes organizations more equitable at all levels. significantly enhances the extent to which our organizations support LGBTQ plus folks. Those organizations are much more family friendly and are much more able to allow both men and women to balance their kind of family care needs with their careers. They're more racially equitable, they're more gender equitable, they're more environmentally sustainable, they have stronger community relations, and if all of that stuff doesn't matter, they're also more innovative, they produce stronger products, they're more profitable, they have stronger long-term performance, they have stronger long-term strategic outlooks, and they have better governance. So that's just from my work, right? Having representation in leadership matters for every single aspect of our organizations, our professions, and our jobs. And the reason is talent. When we allow our leadership structures to recruit based on talent and not based on things that don't matter, like gender or race or sexual orientation, that means we're removing the barriers from allowing talent to rise. And as we all know, our organizations are only as strong as our talent. So if we remove all the barriers to allowing talent to rise, lo and behold, talent rises and our organizations become that much stronger. I've shown this with my research empirically, but we also know that in our guts, right? The more talent our organizations have, the better we are across all metrics that we measure. One of the challenges of achieving advancement or promotion, as I mentioned, particularly when you're in a field where folks like you aren't the dominant group. So in the case of women in male-dominated jobs, there's a challenge that we academics call the visibility paradox. And it's just a fancy word for something that I suspect many of you have felt in your own careers. This is the tendency that you are both invisible in some ways and also hyper visible in other ways. In other words, you may be invisible because perhaps because of your gender, your competence might be questioned. You might not be seen as having the right stuff when it comes to leadership. You might be seen as not quite having the right set of skills or not applying the skills in the right way. You might have experienced what we call infantilization, that is viewing your credentials or your experience as not really counting in the same way as it does for others. Maybe you've had difficulty getting assigned to highly visible projects, or you've had trouble being seen when it comes to being promoted to other positions. This can also manifest in terms of being excluded from some social and professional events where kind of folks talk about the next job opening and develop relations where, you know, you might be tapped for one of those for the next promotion. Have any of you experienced any of this? This sense of having your expertise or knowledge or credentials overlooked or undervalued? Let me see a show of hands. This is really common, right? This is the problem of being invisible for the things that count. The reason there's a paradox, though, is that in other ways, underrepresented folks also tend to be hyper visible. So, for example, when you're a numerical minority, you're more likely to be noticed and counted. You're more conspicuous as the one that isn't quite like the others. You tend to experience scrutiny of what you do, or maybe folks question what you do. Maybe you face performance pressures and surveillance tests, right? Pressures to perform and then hyper scrutiny and judgment when you can't meet those unreasonable expectations. The other thing that tends to happen to us when we're in the numerical minority is our presence tends to be amplified, right? It's harder to form alliances, harder to find mentors, because we're not like the dominant group. We're different, and our difference is visible. This can also lead, and often does lead, to negative evaluation biases, right? Every mistake or perceived misstep is kind of exaggerated and noted and, I don't know, hounded upon. I've interviewed women, for example, who talk about the one mistake rule. The idea that the scrutiny they experience as the only woman on their team or at their level means that any single perceived mistake can be used to undermine their credibility or their confidence. Have any of you experienced that in your career? Yeah. So when we talk about the visibility paradox, it's this paradox that oftentimes we're invisible while also being hyper visible, right? And in other words, we're invisible for the things that count and hyper visible for the things that don't necessarily help our careers. We need to navigate this strategically because all of us need the good kind of visibility. All of us need to be seen and visible for our skills, for our competence, for our knowledge, for our accomplishments. In fact, making our achievements is really vital for our career advancement. We know this, but it can be hard to figure out how best to strategically navigate this paradox in our own careers. So I'm going to share with you some specific strategies that are based on the research I have done, the research others have done. And my goal today is to kind of translate the academic research into really specific strategies you can use for your own careers, but also to support the careers of others, right? I think the more we know about what works, the better we're equipped to manage our own careers, and the better equipped we are to bring folks along with us and help them advance their own careers. And I know for those of us who are more senior in our careers, helping others along becomes more important over time, right? We want to make sure that others have the same opportunities that we had and maybe don't have to work so damn hard to overcome some of the obstacles that they face. So the first strategy I want to talk to you about is building your village. And this event and events like this are a hugely important way that we can do that. We must have a sustained network of people in our field, in our organization, in our profession that can help us survive and thrive and also help us know about resources and opportunities. Now, there are three kinds of people you need in your village. And after I share this strategy, I'll ask you to do an exercise with your paper to start identifying people from each of these categories in your own village. We need, the number one group we need is the trusted core, right? Our posse, our ride or dies, those people who we trust, who trust us, who have our back, who know what we're capable of, right? Who can help us celebrate our wins, but can also help us strategize the challenges. We must have a trusted core, right? These folks in our kind of immediate village, they're supportive of us, but they're also honest with us. We need folks in our trusted core who are willing to be really honest about where we're at, where we could go, maybe some ways in which we can improve our strategy, right? Or take the next step. We need honesty, we need support, and that's where our trusted core comes in. What do we do with our trusted core? Well, we brainstorm strategies together, right? We talk about, hey, I heard there's this new job opening. Do you know anything about that? You know, will you look over my resume? Will you kind of do a practice mock interview with me, right? Strategy, you know, I'm gonna go talk to my boss about a pay raise. Can you kind of, you know, can we have a mock thing, you know, when you can kind of hear my pitch and give me feedback on how effective you expect it'll be. You need to figure out ways that you can be amplifying each other's work. So for example, in a meeting, if your work is being kind of dismissed or not recognized, a member of your trust, give it some thought. How would you populate each of these categories in thinking about your own village? Who's promoting you? Who are you promoting? Who are you mentoring? And who's mentoring you? That trusted core is easy. In fact, research finds that women compared to men professionals tend to have a much more robust group of trusted core. Women, as opposed to men, research finds, tend to be much better at building that core. We tend to be much better at building those strong ties within our careers, coworkers, peers, and others than men. That's great. We all need that trusted core. That trusted core helps us, get through, brings us much joy, much gratification. But women, as compared to men, according to research, shows we tend to have a deficit when it comes to weaker ties. So folks who are like promoters and sponsors, we tend to have harder time building capacity in that area. So think about your own groups. Where is your strength? Where's your strength? In the trusted core, in the mentor box, or in the promoter box? Where's your strength? Anyone want to share?
My trusted core.
Yeah, trusted core, yeah.
Yeah, trusted. I have 5 people on that list.
Yep, who immediately came to
Everyone
mind.
I'm fighting to get.
Yep, yep. How many of you are experiencing that? Like the trusted core was like, oh yeah, yeah. And then the mentors and the promoters, maybe a little bit more difficult. You had to maybe think about it a little bit more. For how many of you is that true? Tell me an example of a promoter you have. Like, what are they doing for you? Anyone want to share that just for the sake of the group? What is a promoter? If you identified a promoter, what are they busy doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me the other day that I'd worked on several projects with. I'm an instructional designer. And he mentioned that he had told the CEO that he was confident that I'd be able to help out with a new project that they'd be working on. And that just really meant a lot to me, because the CEO is somebody who I don't know necessarily feels like I'm very competent. And so it was nice to have somebody support that and to share examples of different things that I've worked out with him that he has appreciated.
That is fantastic. I hope you all heard that, right? The idea is that, and for the folks on Zoom, someone recently talked about the potential of this person to really contribute to a project to the CEO. It's a great example of an intermediary, especially a man intermediary, playing that role of being the promoter. That's powerful. And again, research shows that when especially influential men promote women, they're seen as the information they share is seen as legitimate, as seen as unbiased, as seen as credible, right? And it highlights your kind of value in the eyes of the person that they're promoting you to. Love that example. What about mentors? How many of you feel like you have a really solid core of mentors in your village? How many of you feel like you could do work in building out that part of your, yeah. This is really common. And again, I want you to think both, for those of you more senior in your careers, thinking both about how you can populate that with folks that you are mentoring, and also how you can populate that with folks who are mentoring you. And I'll help you do that, because the next strategy I want you to think about is creative mentorship. Now, we all know that mentorship is important. I just talked about the importance of, hierarchical mentorship, someone more influential or senior providing mentorship for somebody younger, more junior. And this is how we tend to think about mentorship, right? That it's hierarchical, that an older, more experienced person takes on the role of teacher or advisor, and the job of the mentee is just to listen, to learn, and to assimilate. That's how we tend to think about mentorship. And that's great. That's super valuable. I hope nothing I say today will in any way make you think that that kind of mentorship model is not valuable. It's especially valuable when senior people in our careers serve as nightlights, right? These are people that help us navigate the curves and the twists of the job. Nightlights are invaluable, right? These senior folks who can help guide the way when we're not quite sure what's coming up or what's next. But mentoring can be so much more. So I want to talk to you about some creative approaches to mentorship that can serve us in so many ways in terms of getting our talents, our expertise seen and valued. The first is peer mentoring. Now, we probably heard about this, but this is a great example of a group that can be facilitating peer mentorship. This is when folks who are maybe at a similar level in the same company, maybe not in the same company, and you can be providing really vital peer support to each other. So for example, members of your trusted core can also serve as a peer mentor. Research finds that peer mentors, as opposed to the nightlight model, the hierarchical model, have the greatest influence on our professional achievement. So more than any other type of mentoring, peer mentoring has the most impact on our careers, our professional development. So again, thinking about your trusted core, who are those folks who you can be more deliberately or intentionally engaging in peer mentorship, right? Talking about opportunities, helping each other kind of navigate, thinking about what's next, helping each other prepare for next steps. Peer mentoring is transformative. The other model is reverse mentoring. This flips the traditional model of mentoring on its head. This is when a more junior person mentors someone more senior, right? We often don't think about mentorship like this, but research finds that in organizations that implement peer reverse mentoring, organizations become more collaborative. They reduce knowledge gaps on both sides. For example, I recently read a study, and this won't surprise any of you who are above the age of 40, that reverse mentoring makes an organization more technically competent. In other words, the more my students mentor me, the more tech savvy I'm going to become. When we apply this to a whole work organization, the better we all are when we're engaged in these kind of reverse mentoring relationships, right? Research also finds that reverse mentoring improves retention, drives needed cultural change in an organization, and promotes inclusion. It's huge, right? So how can we be thinking about mentoring, not just that top-down model, but that lateral model in terms of peer mentoring, but also the reverse mentoring, right? What would that look like for you? What would that look like in your organization? How can you be moving closer toward that kind of a model to reap the incredible benefits that researchers have identified? The final model is a little bit unusual and kind of challenges our idea about what mentoring is. It's called flash mentoring. And it's exactly what it sounds like. These are like really brief, but focused mentoring that offers on-demand support and guidance on specific issues or specific tasks or specific challenges. These are folks you could just pick up the phone and say, I have a quick question about this. Hey, I'm doing something new. Can you just walk me through this? Or, hey, I kind of have a controversial issue that came up at work. Can you just talk me through it? And so you may meet once, you may meet 2 or 3 or 4 times, but it's kind of brief and focused on a specific issue. And when we implement flash mentoring, it's a way of signaling to everybody in our organization that, hey, we're all in this together. Let's work together. Let's rely on each other. Let's have each other's back. I may not be in this kind of committed long-term mentoring relationship with you, but hey, I'm ready to talk through a tricky situation or a new skill. Just pick up the phone, let's meet, let's hash it out. Research finds that flash mentoring, kind of normalizing the idea that at any point we can go to any person and kind of problem solve or address a specific and focused issue. It builds solidarity across the organization, across rank and across units within our organization. And it builds a culture of mutual support and interdependence. It's also a really sneaky way to get lots more people aware of what you're doing, right? So when we have flash mentoring, it's also a kind of a stealth way in which you can be normalizing the fact that you're reaching out to lots of different people, letting them know what you're doing and getting guidance. It turns out when we talk through a problem with a coworker, we're more invested in that issue and in that coworker, right? So flash mentoring can be a really powerful stealth way to build visibility for yourself and build stronger relationships with others. So all of these provide pathways for getting seen, being visible. So I want you to, the next exercise is I want you to assess your mentoring constellation. I want you to label peer, reverse, group, and flash mentoring. And I want you to start populating each of those models with folks who are already in your constellation or ideas you have of folks who could be in your constellation, right? How can you maximize your mentoring constellation in order to reap all of these many benefits for your career and for others' career? So take a minute and start populating those lists. And again, if it's hard to see in the back, this is reverse peer, reverse group mentors, and flash mentors. Where do you have strength? Where do you need more work? Well, in those areas where you don't yet have capacity or you don't yet have strength, how could you build it? What would this look like? How could you use women in safety group and meetings like this to develop these kinds of mentoring constellations? For those more senior, how could you be proactive in implementing reverse mentoring? How can you be signaling to folks, early career folks in your network that you want mentoring from them too, that you acknowledge there are knowledge gaps on both sides, right? And that you're both in this to develop and build your skill and knowledge base. What could that look like? What could that do to your career? Both in terms of serving as a mentor and also as being mentored. What would this look like? Sorry, I didn't even talk about group mentoring. Just very briefly, the idea of group mentoring are networks of mentors, right? Overlapping networks of mentors. In other words, thinking of mentorship not just as a relationship between two people, but a relationship within a team, across teams, right? Between or across units, right? Recognition that we have knowledge gaps or skill gaps. And so as a group, we're going to engage in this kind of skill building or knowledge building. Kind of the idea of a mentoring web as opposed to a mentoring dyad. So where are your strengths? I want to hear where were you like, no, I got this. I've got this in the bag. This model of mentoring I'm doing really well. Where did you find a strength? What was easy to populate?
Here.
What's that?
The peer.
Peer. How many of you feel like you have strong peer mentorship relationships? Yeah, and that's part of build. I think that overlaps with the fact that it was easier for many of us to populate the trusted core, right? When we have a strong trusted core, that's partly the role that our core can play, right? Is providing that peer support and peer mentorship. Where was it really hard to populate?
Reverse.
Reverse mentoring, yeah. Any of you have a good example of reverse mentoring that has worked for you or that you've worked to develop? Yeah.
It's actually my new favorite right now. Mine directly that I report to is the same age as one of my daughters. And like all the stuff that you were talking about previously, I just feel like it's helped me so much this year in developing my way forward. So
That's fantastic. So the comment was that there's a manager who's the same age as an attendee's daughter. And developing that reverse mentorship has been really beneficial, I guess, for you, but also very much for him. Her, thank you. That's great. I love to hear that. Anyone else have an example of kind of a non-traditional flash, and any of you engage in flash mentoring? Maybe you didn't have a word for it or a phrase for it, but it's something that you do routinely.
Yeah, I pretty regularly call my old boss, who's now just a close friend, about any conversation that's gonna be weird, anything.
I love that.
It just helps to talk it through.
Yes, it helps to talk it through. Flash mentoring can be especially powerful exactly to talk through sticky issues, controversial issues, challenging issues. And in those cases, it can be really nice to have flash mentoring relationships outside of your organization. So that, you know, you're not worried that you're gonna share something confidential or that it'll come back to you. What about group mentoring? Any of you that work in organizations or teams where group mentoring is just kind of standard or expected? And how does this work? Can you share any tips with others about how to build this? Yeah.
So in the Utah Safety Council, we're a really small team. So we will have a lot of meetings where we all just get together and then we just brainstorm and kind of bounce ideas off each other. We're such a small team, so we're able to do that all the time.
I love that.
Consider that like the whole team as a group mentor.
I love it. And again, you may not have kind of conceptualized it that way, but you know, thinking, you know, having a name to describe it, I think can help crystallize why it's important, how you can continue to sustain it or build it. Group mentors are powerful, and it's a way of also kind of reducing, you know, for many of us, especially early career folks, when we show up at a meeting and it seems like everybody already knows what they're doing, it can feel really isolating. You feel like you're the only one who has questions, or you're the only one who doesn't understand. But if you intentionally build the model of group mentors, then it normalizes the idea that all of us can ask questions. We all have something to learn. We all have something to contribute, right? It can kind of dial down some of that sense of, you know, I should already know this, or, you know, feeling like a fraud or feeling like an imposter. It's also a really great way, as you mentioned, to circulate good ideas and best practices, right? The more we're talking, sharing strategies, asking questions, brainstorming, debating, the more likely we are to include everybody's perspective and voices, which elevates our decision-making in innumerable ways. And the more likely we are to pass along good ideas, things that are working to other units or teams or other organizations, right? We need those networks of information and strategy sharing, and group mentoring can be a really powerful way to do that. Okay, the third strategy is gonna be the most difficult. So I'm gonna warn you already, I'm gonna talk about the dreaded self-promotion. Let me see a show of hands of how many of you love self-promoting. Exactly. You saw I didn't raise my hand either. In a recent survey of 240 senior leaders in Silicon Valley tech firms, they identified visibility as the most important factor to their career advancement. More important than their expertise, more important than their results, and more important than their skills, including their leadership skills. Another study found that women who were the most proactive about making their achievements visible, advanced further and faster, earned more, had higher rates of career satisfaction, and were more likely to attract sponsors and promoters. It's really clear that visibility matters, and it's really clear that engaging in self-promotion helps our careers, helps us to earn more, and makes us happier at our jobs. So this is the real paradox. We hate it, and we also know we've got to do it. So I want to share with you, in thinking about how to center your own contributions, some strategies informed by research about what works, what doesn't work, and how we can do this effectively. Self-promotion is so hard and so important, especially for women. we find it very difficult. Why? Why do we find why does even the idea or the phrase self-promotion? You notice I put up here, center your contributions. You notice I didn't write self-promotion. Because I didn't want to like raise your heart rate as soon as the slide came on the screen. Why is it so hard?
People suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is a big deal, right? So how can we kind of center our own contributions and promote ourselves when we're feeling insecure about where our skills and knowledge are? Why else is it hard? Yeah,
You also feel like you're being caught.
yeah,
Bragging.
yeah.
You don't want to do that, want to?
Yeah, every one of us has been taught, as my mama used to say, like, don't get too big for your britches. Don't read your own press, right? Don't be arrogant. Don't be a narcissist. Don't, right? Be humble. Why else is it hard for you? Why, yeah, in the back. What's that?
Know our worth, our value.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to know our value at work, absolutely. It's so important that we are clear about what our value is. We're clear about what our skills are. We're clear about what we're capable of, and we're clear about what we've already accomplished. This can be really hard to do, and that's just the first step. The second step is making sure other people know what our value is, what our skills are, what our expertise is, what our accomplishments look like. Yeah, we often feel inauthentic. We've seen other people self-promote in ways that look icky to us or make us feel icky, right? And for women especially, self-promotion can be risky. There are research finds there are real risks of women being too assertive in self-promoting. We have to walk a tightrope of doing it in ways that can be seen and heard and valued without stepping over the line that leads to penalties for us. So it's fraud. It's not surprising to me that this is uncomfortable for all of us. First, we've been taught it's not a great quality. And second, we're probably, even if we haven't thought about it very much, kind of aware that there are risks involved, right? So many of us default to not doing it at all. So how can we do it in a way that is meaningful? Well, first of all, we have to reframe what self-promotion is. I would argue that when we're absolutely clear and able to articulate our abilities and our accomplishments, that's called leadership. And when we're able to effectively communicate to others what we've done, that's strong communication skills. So when we think about the needed skills to advance in our career, leadership skills and strong communication skills are really vital skills. So the more we can exercise that self-promotion muscle, let's reframe that as building leadership skills, building valuable leadership and communication skills that will serve us no matter what our job is. Build the case for your own career progression. Build the case for yourself first, and then with others second. Be clear about your interests, your abilities, your achievements, because these are the kind of things that are going to allow you to gain visibility and build a strong reputation for yourself among your peers and superiors, and that are going to allow you to advance. So what works? Number one, be specific. Rely on specific information, examples, projects that you've worked on. The more specific you are about your contributions, the less likely they are to be perceived as arrogant, and the less likely they are to be dismissed. So be specific. Center your contributions by being specific. Here's what I've done. Here's what I know. Here's what I can do. One study found that when candidates took the time, job candidates for a promotion, took the time to clearly explain their strengths, their experience, and their achievements, they were rated by hiring committees more highly. They were rated as more competent, as more skilled, right? So in those moments that you are asked about who you are and what you can do, be specific. Don't be humble, but also be specific about what you can do, how you've done things, what projects you've worked on, what you know. Find opportunities to share when asked. It tends to happen rather frequently that even when we're given opportunities to share what we've done, we often engage in self-deprecation, or we often undermine our own expertise or our knowledge, again, because that sense that we don't want to be arrogant, we don't want to be too big for our britches. When you're asked, share. Be ready to share. Be prepared to share specific things that you've done, specific things that you know. Share when others are sharing, right? When you're in groups or in meetings or in other contexts where others are sharing their accomplishments, be prepared to share as well. Because when you share in response to somebody else sharing, it's much less likely to appear as though you're just tooting your own horn. Be prepared to share and know what you want to share. The second strategy is to always situate your accomplishments in the context of shared goals. So thinking about your team's goals, your company's goals, your industry's goals, always be prepared to say, I've done this, and that's important because my company's goals are this, and those two things are aligned. In other words, when you situate your own accomplishments in terms of the shared accomplishments of the team or the shared goals of the organization, you're just seen as a team player and a really valuable team player, right? So think about ways in which you can be clear and specific about your contributions and couch those contributions in the goals of your team or your organization or your industry. This reinforces the idea that you are collaborative and committed to the group's success. And research finds that especially in male-dominated jobs, women gain more status and influence when they're viewed as group-oriented as opposed to self-oriented. So the more you are tying your accomplishments to the group's goals, the stronger your accomplishments are to be valued, and the less likely you are to be seen as somebody who just brags about what she's done. Number 3 strategy, when you're sharing your achievements, be honest about the challenges and obstacles you faced. So link your achievements to both shared goals and to challenges and obstacles. Why? Well, research finds that when you do that, you're seen as warmer and more sincere. Somehow when you say, I achieved this huge goal for my team, our team's goal was this, and I worked hard in collaboration with my team, and we achieved this. There were several obstacles along the way that we had to overcome, and by overcoming those, we were able to have a huge success, right? This may seem simple, but it actually has a powerful effect on how listeners hear you. So when you identify lessons learned in the context of sharing your achievements, you enhance your credibility. People are more likely to absorb what you're telling them and to see you not just as a team player, but somebody who's really serious about getting things done. Finally, the final strategy, number 4, practice what's called dual promotion. This is when, in the context of sharing your own accomplishments, you also compliment a colleague or peer at the same time. Research finds that this strategy consistently improves your representation. And there's an added benefit that you get to bring folks along with you on the way of centering your contributions. Let me give you an example of what dual promotion looks like. This project was successful because of our teamwork. Again, you're situating in the context of the team and the team's goals. I took care of all the financial analysis, technical processes, and back-end design. Alexis really impressed me with how she handled our client communications. We both took charge of what we do best, and it led to a great outcome. This is what we're talking about when we talk about dual promotion. And again, when you engage in dual promotion, you're seen as more legitimate. It enhances your reputation. It solidifies in people's minds that you're skilled and capable. And it allows you to bring somebody else along in getting the credit for doing something successful. This is a brilliant strategy. And it also, if you're like me, makes it easier to talk about your accomplishments when you can talk about your accomplishments in the context of a team accomplishment or another person's accomplishment, right? I love it when I get to talk about the brilliance of a paper I published, especially if my student is a co-author, right? Because I can say, look what my graduate student accomplished. Look what we did together. Look what we were able to do in collaboration, right? That lowers the bar for me to talk about the impact of my own work, right? Hence, I always publish with students because my students are brilliant also. So the next exercise, I want you to assess your self-promotion potential. I want you to, put those messages aside that run through your head that self-promotion is bad. Instead, reframe it as leadership and communication and start to think about your strengths here and where you need work. So identify 5 of your core strengths. This might be the hardest part for many of you. What are your skills, knowledge, achievements, and strengths? What are those things that you can queue up in the context where you need to share your contributions? Just 5. You can think about this more carefully later. Second, how can you advocate for yourself internally? Think of a single example, say over the next week or two, where you could practice centering your contributions within your own job, unit, team, or organization. One example, just one example of how you could do this. The more creative, the better. Number 3, how can you share your accomplishments externally? Today would be a good time to practice doing that. So you can, just give me one example, again, over the next week or 2, or over the next month, one example of when you could share your accomplishments, center your accomplishments outside of your own team, job, or organization. What would that look like? How could you do this? And finally, think of one example over the next week or 2 where you could practice that dual promotion technique. Because again, that could be the gateway for helping you to become more comfortable sharing your own contributions, right? One example over the next couple of weeks where you will have an opportunity to engage in dual promotion. So take a minute and fill those out. And be creative, right? Are there company newsletters, emails, or meetings where you might have an opportunity to share internally? Can you think of an example, a recent example where your work helped your team or your company achieve its goals? Is that something you could share and make visible and center? Could you offer to provide a lunch workshop on something, on a skill or something your team did really well recently, and you want to share that with other members of the organization? What if you asked for an agenda item to be added to your next meeting where you could share updates and lessons learned? Would you be comfortable doing that? Would that be hard? What about just reminding your colleagues that you and your team have accomplished something really important and you'd be available to answer questions for them if that's ever relevant for their team's work? Could you team up with some of your peer mentors, some of your trusted core, and nominate each other for awards or other recognitions that would recognize what you've done? I saw that there are award nominations for women in safety too. Is that a way that you could start to center your own contributions? How would it feel to nominate yourself? Could you circulate an email that centers your accomplishments in the context of your team's, serving your team's goals and what your team has been able to accomplish recently? What if you started the next meeting by asking everybody to go around and share their recent wins? How could you normalize allowing, encouraging, supporting people to share what they've done, what they know? In terms of external messaging, what about networks like this? Social media? Could you share something that you and your team have accomplished on social media. I'll tell you, LinkedIn is where humans go to self-promote. How can you grow your LinkedIn network so that when you do share those kinds of accomplishments, it's more likely to be seen by a broader network of people, including people outside of your trusted core? Could you stretch yourself and attend one professional event that is kind of outside your comfort zone, where the only job you have is to meet people and talk about what you know how to do? Yeah, I'm hearing laughter because I know for many of us that our blood pressure just spiked and we're gonna have to do some mindfulness exercises. But we can do this. Ask someone from your trusted core to go with you. Practice what this would look like with one of your members of your posse, your trusted core. Practice and go together and help amplify each other in that moment. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Alexis. She can tell you all about something that, she and her team just did this amazing thing. Let her, right, cue you up. So that now you have no choice but to share. Thanks, Alexis. Thanks, buddy. In terms of dual promotion, always share credit. Again, this enhances your reputation and perceptions of your skill. Constantly practice linking your contributions and achievements to the achievements of others. Also just makes you a decent human being, right? As opposed to stealing credit from others and bragging about that. Where did you have most trouble with this exercise? What was the hardest part of this exercise? How many of you found identifying your strengths as difficult? Yeah, this is hard. I expected that to be the hardest part. I expected everything else to kind of be easy. Why was this hard for you? Will anyone share?
It actually became easier when you actually the other ones were done.
Oh, good, good. Oh, I was trying to the exercise of swallow the toad, get the hardest part out of the way. Maybe I should switch those. Yeah, good. Why was this hard for you?
It goes against what we've been taught.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to self-promote, so now you're asking me to write down what I'm not good at.
I know. And think about, for you, this would be difficult for me too. So no judgment, but just alone with a piece of paper. We all know we have skills and talents and accomplishments and knowledge that are really valuable. But we're out of practice in naming them. We need to get comfortable naming them. We're so out of practice that even just being alone with a piece of paper and a pen, it was hard. And we probably felt some discomfort in our bellies or in our shoulders or in our necks, right? It was hard. We have to practice. One way to practice is with our trusted core, right? This is something that members of our trusted core can help us with and that we can help them with, right? Practice talking to each other about the wins. Celebrate the wins. But in order to celebrate the wins, articulate to each other what you did, what you accomplished, what you learned, what you know. Right? This is so valuable because if we don't know our own value as someone in the backside, if we don't know our own value, there's no chance we're gonna reap the benefits of self-promotion, internally, externally, right? Because we don't know what we're gonna say. So we have to be prepared, we have to be ready. And part of doing that is practicing. And part of that is actually putting ourselves in positions where we can practice actually doing this internally or externally. So start with that dual promotion, because again, that kind of lowers the barriers. I want to hear some creative examples of how you can do this internally. I want to hear what you came up with. What does this look like? One example. And by the way, this is a friendly village for each of you. So do not, we're all in this together. So do not be afraid of negative judgment from other folks, because we're all feeling what you feel right now. But who can share a creative example of sharing your contributions internally?
So what do you mean by internally? Are you talking about within your organization
Yeah.
or within yourself?
Within your own organization, team, group, organization. Yeah, please.
So I think after your last talk, I decided to go back and make it a goal for myself to really start kind of being a champion for other people. So what I've been doing is after a project or anything, even a small collaboration, I will actually email that person who really contributed a lot, their manager. And she really their horn at how much of a good job we did. And it circles back, that person hears about it, and then they think about me as well, so it's a big issue.
That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you for sharing this. And here's a tool that we can all walk away with. So the statement was, when I see someone do something really great, I email their manager and let the manager know about it, right? So that huge example of that dual promotion. And the benefit is not only are you supporting that other person in a really high impact way, but that means they're gonna reciprocate down the road. So they're gonna try and find opportunities to promote you as well. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. Any creative ideas for sharing accomplishments outside of your own team or organization? What could that look like? This is hard, right? How can you do it?
I think that's where you brought up like the social media.
Yeah.
Like, just did a big project that worked and. People can look their work network right there.
Yeah, share it, share it, share it. Share it because you want to promote other people on the team and what they accomplished. And share it because you accomplished something, right? Share it, share it, share it. Find creative ways to share. If you're not already doing this, bring it up among your trusted core as something you want to work on and something you need their help working on. Because this is much easier done in collaboration with people we trust and who are willing to be honest with us. I'll give you an example from my own life. My sister was divorced after many years being married, and she had to date for the first time in her 50s, right? And she hadn't dated since high school. So she went on dating apps, but she had no idea how they worked, right? So she just came up with something on her own for her profile. Then a few weeks went by and she was getting some very disturbing responses. You can guess what some of those responses might have looked like. I said, Lauren, read me your profile. This seems really strange. My sister had written that she likes to party and have a good time. Which she does. But for her, what she means is like, I love a good barbecue. I love to have, I love to have friends over. I love to have, this is genuinely what she meant. And it never occurred to her that link, she needed a trusted core, right? She needed to show the trusted core of the profile. How does this apply to you? So she changed it. Now she's actually, this was a couple of years ago. She's now married to the first guy that responded to the new profile. He's wonderful. He's wonderful. Well, how does this apply to you? Come up with a script. Before you send out that LinkedIn thing and your heart rate's going up, share it with one of your trusted core. Say, hey, will you read this over? Will you look at this? Or, hey, this is what I'm thinking about saying in an email. Will you have a look at this? Right? Let your trusted core mirror back to you, honestly, because they love you and trust you and there's no judgment, honestly, what they think. This can really help you kind of overcome, if you have your wing woman saying, this is awesome, this is great, send this out, post this. That's going to give you a little bit more courage to do it than if you're just trying to do it alone. So again, go back and use your trusted core to help you overcome some of the barriers to self-promotion. All right. The final strategy, be intentional about where you're headed. Now, being really clear about what your knowledge, skills, accomplishments look like is a really good start, right? Know who you are, know what you're about, know where you're headed, and then be really intentional about coming up with a plan. And I don't mean a vague kind of, we'll see what happens plan. I mean a specific plan. Where are you right now in your career? What do you think the next best step for you in your career is? And that could be staying in the same job and just kind of trying out new skills or developing kind of new approaches, right? Or it could be moving laterally, it could be moving forward, right? What is the best next step for you? Now think 5 years from now, right? What is that place you're headed? Where are you going? And then think 10 years from now, where do you want to be, right? What skills do you need to get there? What support and resources will you need that you don't yet have? So for example, if there's a job you want, like you know somebody who has a job that just sounds awesome and you want that job, be intentional about finding out what that job requires, what kinds of skills, knowledge, connections, what kind of reputation you need to have that job. And here's the last exercise. We're getting close on time, but I think this is really important. Identify a peer who has a really strong reputation and ask yourself, what skills, qualifications, and capabilities do they have? So start with the peer. Who's a peer that you admire? What do you admire about them? What skills or capabilities or qualifications do they have that you don't have? Second, identify someone in a position you want. Again, that could be a lateral position, an internal position, a different position. What makes them successful? What do they do in that job that you think is really good? What experience do they have? What achievements do they have? What associations or network connections do they have? Like how do they do that? How did they do that? And how do they do the job and how did they get there? And oftentimes you don't know, ask, and this can be a way to grow your mentorship constellation. Ask them, hey, your job looks awesome. I'd love to know more about your job. What was the trajectory? How did you get there? What did you need? What was the process like? What do you actually do in the job? What do you like about the job? What don't you like about the job? Then identify a leader you admire. Somebody in a really senior position, doesn't have to be in your own organization, but someone you know in a senior position and you really admire them. What's their leadership style? How do they perform in meetings? How do they address people? What distinguishes them from other leaders? Say leaders you think suck. That's a highly technical sociological term. That means not good. What distinguishes them? What do they do that you like? How can you model your own approach to those things based on a leader you admire? Again, be intentional. Look around. And if you don't know, ask, right? Again, talk to the leader. Like, how did you get there? Were you ready for it? How did you prepare for the job? What did you have to learn on the job? Right? Again, grow your mentoring constellation by gathering data about the people and about the job that you want. Also, for those more senior, be that person that others are looking to, right? To model their own career trajectory after, and be proactive about reaching out. Folks, if you're in a position of authority, reach out to early career folks or new folks to your organization and say, hey, do you see yourself in a leadership position? I'd love to talk to you about I'd love to meet and talk about what that looked like for me, how I did it, what some of the challenges were. Be proactive so we can have that reverse mentoring relationship, right? Open up those relationships. Don't wait for folks to come to you. Reach out. Have you ever thought about leadership? Research finds that women often don't perceive themselves as leaders until somebody else lets them know they have the kinds of skills that could lead to a leadership role. Women have to be tapped on the shoulder. Do the tapping. Help somebody to see. I swear to this day, I am a research professor for one reason. When I was in college as a first-gen student, making my way, feeling like a fraud, not knowing if I had a brain in my head, I had a professor who wrote on a paper, you should turn this into a dissertation. So I did. If she had never written that, no, I'm a professor, I know by the time we're grading, we're exhausted, right? We're putting comments on, we're half asleep, we don't even know what we're saying, right? That comment was so profound to me because it meant she thought I had what it took, right, to write a dissertation. I had no idea what that even meant, but I was gonna figure it out. Be the person who does the tapping. Be the person who plants the seed, who sends the message. You have what it takes. Are you interested in leadership? How can I support you? How can I be part of your network? Reduce the barriers to younger, earlier career folks approaching you by approaching them. And I'll just end you with this, right? One of my favorite scholars says that we can't move toward a better world unless we can imagine a better world as possible. So I want you to think in the context of your own career, what's possible? What is possible for you? Where do you want to be? What would really, help you thrive? What do you want your work to look like? What role do you want your job to play in your life? What kind of life do you want the job to fuel, right? What values does this work serve for you? Where are you headed? What's next for you? Be intentional about it. Be collaborative about it. Nest yourself in strong relationships with other people and start to move in that direction. So I'll leave, I apologize, Joy, I didn't leave a ton of time for questions. Apologize to folks because last time the Q&A was so nourishing and fulfilling for me. You asked a professor to talk and we can't shut up, so forgive me. But here's my email. I want to encourage any of you to follow up if you have questions or thoughts or ideas. Long after today, I would be just delighted to be part of your village. So please don't hesitate to reach out if I could ever be helpful. Thank you so much.
One more round of applause for her.
Picture. Pictures are better with
Why
photos.
am I in the picture? That's right.
There you go.
I'm trying not to. Here's my you in the back.
Good.
All right, if you have not got a raffle ticket right now, is the time for a raffle. So raise your hand if you did not get a raffle ticket and you would like to be entered to win maybe one of these fabulous prizes over here. All right, here we go. So we're gonna go ahead and start out with our first one. All right. So the first prize that we're going to draw for today is from Dynamic Safety and Environmental LLC. This certificate will allow you a free consult for either environmental consultation for safety or environmental, right? And it's a $250 value. This is provided by Joy Glad. She's in the back. So if you want to look for it, it's just right back there. So you'll reach out to Joy to get this scheduled. She'll come out to you and kind of let you know what you can do to get it safer at your place of work. So the first winner for this is going to be last numbers 871. All right, what do we got over there, Tammy? Okay, we're gonna do a little grill set, to put out. And this one is 843. All right. We have a couple, we'll do the gift cards next time. How many do we have with the gift cards? Okay, so we got, is it 2 to where? Cinemark. So got the 2 winners here. All right, one of the winners is 864. 865. We're gonna go ahead and give away this throw next. 859. All right. All right, what's up next, Joy? Ooh, a diffuser. 85. That's the same one. 854. All right. Megaplex, we got 2 of those. 848. And 857. 857, all right. Those go together. So we've got a little, I think it's like a cross bag and a mug to go with it. 870. That is weird. They too. Oh, I didn't see the Delta. Yeah. They don't serve it. You did. All right, we've got, these are glass meal prep. 841. I'll go ahead and turn this time over to Fabiana with Utah Safety Council, who will go over some upcoming events that we have planned for women in safety.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and participating in this event. We would like to thank Christy again for her insight and her wisdom as well. Our next events, we have a few events coming up. One is in June 11. We're gonna do it in the Silicon Slope, that's it, up in Lehigh. And we're gonna be talking about mastering networking mastering networking. We are doing a fundraiser, there we go, for school supplies during the annual ceremony awards. So that's gonna be in August. And last one is gonna be the Wish Award nomination, and we're gonna start like taking the nomination in August, so get those nominations ready. So check your emails, check our social media, because we're gonna be posting all this information. So thank you, everybody, for coming, and hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.
You're welcome.